Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Meg Braff. Welcome to my home in Locust Valley. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Meg Braff. I'm an interior designer and antique dealer based in West Palm Beach, Florida, and Locust Valley, New York. And today we're visiting my house, which is on the North Shore of Long Island. I think what drew us here, my husband grew up here from the time he was about 17, and his parents lived here. And so we started coming here when we were a young couple and have just made wonderful friends here. Doug and I looked for about 12 years for a house in Locust Valley. We moved here when my twins were born, and we bought a lovely house, but we quickly realized we would like to have a little more space, higher ceilings. This has been a great house for us because we bought it. It was a ranch house built in the 1960s. The property had a lot of beautiful old trees. It had a woodland area in the back, which gave a lot of privacy. The only room that was really redeeming or worth keeping was the library. But that is the room that kind of inspired most of the house because I love the size of the doors, the size of the window panes, and we took that door example and recreated it throughout the entire ground floor. I think the relationship between indoors and outdoors is one of the most important things in any house. And so for this house, we really wanted to have a relationship with every room on the ground floor with the garden. I wanted to have really beautiful views. The light is very important. So we've really focused on that. Is my favorite room in the house, this living room, which has a really wonderful scale. This is another mantel that I purchased at auction years ago. But what's nice about this room is the 3 seating areas. It feels very intimate and cozy. You can sort of have 10 to 12 people in each seating area, and the chairs and stools all kind of move around very easily. This was sort of the largest wall in the room where, we wanted to anchor the room here with the seating area. This screen is something that I bought years ago at an estate sale here in Locust Valley that was Mrs. Boswick's house. And it's one of my favorite pieces ever. And it was a house that Mario Boada had decorated 30 years ago. The palm trees are pretty fantastic. I am always looking and collecting metal palm trees. But this particular pair I bought at auction. Years ago, for a client in Jamaica, we purchased another pair that were identical to these. And the dealer told me there were only 2 others in the entire world, and they were in Valentino's house in Italy. But then miraculously, I found another pair. I think one of the reasons this is my favorite room is it just has so many pieces that I truly love. There are things like, I love, actually these chairs are, a gilt wood bamboo. We have this gilt wood Asian coffee table, which is so wonderful and slender and basically allowed me to have this 3rd seating area. Over here we've got this very pretty lacquered coffee table that has a Coromandel screen inside of it. It's just very special. I did have a piece of glass made for it so that we can put our glasses down. The pair of chairs here, I love little chairs that can be moved around. This is a fabric from Lee Joffa, which is one of my favorite, I think it's called Althea. But for years I had tried to get a client to use this fabric and no one ever did. So it was my chance to use it, but it kind of has all the colors I love, the sort of pretty sea glassy blues and teals and apricot and yellow. I really love yellow. I'm having a big yellow moment these days. Then this room also sort of called out for a center table because it was sort of the thing that grounded all 3 seating areas. And then it also gives you an opportunity to create a little scale with, large branches. It's very seasonal. Over here I have a pair of these antique Chinese paper panels that are I had them in storage for 10 years before we even bought this house. And I took the two best ones that were the most similar, and I put them here. And they have these very simple mid-century frames on them. And then the other 5 you will see reappear in my stair hall. This sofa it was actually a vintage D'Angelo sofa that I just had reupholstered, but I just love the shape of it, the channeled back. It's just very interesting. So the curtains are a really beautiful Bernard Thorpe fabric that we had custom colored and sort of icoty print. And I think Bernard Thorpe is now owned by Pierre Frey. But I really love this fabric and the color, and it just had a little depth to it, and it's a little abstract. And we wanted the curtains just to frame the windows and be pretty simple and easy on the eye, because it's sort of all about the view and the garden beyond. One of the reasons that I loved this house when we bought it, the windows that were existing here looked very much like this. This is a large picture window, but then the French doors were sort of what the original doors looked like in the house. We had them all remade, but I was very drawn to how much light they brought in with the very large glass panes. So this Louis XV style desk is quite pretty. I just loved the warmth of the wood. I still like wood furniture, dark wood furniture and antiques, of course. And the leather tool top is quite pretty. And it's just a place where we have some picture frames, and I keep my stationery actually in here. And it's a nice place to sit, write some notes, do a Zoom call. So I try to come in and use this room in that way a lot. This room is, I think, 30 feet. So the rug is about 28 feet or 27 feet. And it was made in India. But what I love about it is it's jute. It's very soft underfoot. And until recently, we had a dog, QB, who loved to come in here. And there were a few accidents, but at some point, after having the carpets cleaned up many, many times, I found a painter who faux painted the stains out. So at some point, I'm going to replace this carpet, but until then, I think it's sort of holding up okay. This is an interesting mix here. This whole seating area was sort of inspired. I love this painting, this Roger Mule. He's one of my favorite artists. I love the colors. It's just so easy on the eye. He was a French artist that probably passed away about 6 years ago, and I've been collecting his paintings for a while. I love this little pair of brass octagonal nesting tables. They're just almost invisible. They could just be moved around. It's just another place to put a glass down. And I do love a little bit of leopard. This is a recent purchase from an antique store in New York, but has this very pretty Scalamandre velvet on top. And again, I love painted furniture. So this is, painted furniture with a gilt detail. It's really just another place for someone to sit. And I always try to do a good mix of coffee tables. This is a vintage Carl Springer one that is goat skin that has just like an interesting top detail. It's just very pretty, and I like the cut corners. That shape is really nice. This is my favorite room, but let's go into the library. And this is our library. This was the only original room that was left in the house. It had this very pretty detailing. It had a Serge Roche carved molding around the mantel. This is another mantel that I actually bought at an antique store in Newport, Rhode Island, probably 20 years ago. And it was sitting in my storage, and I pulled it out, and it was the perfect size. I do love a Rouge Royale mantel. The doors lead out to the terrace. It's nice that we have a desk in here where a lot of times my kids, when they're working from here, they set up their monitor there. And again, we have 2 very nice seating areas. This seating area faces the television that's tucked into the paneling. And we have these really super comfortable swivel chairs in a cat and a tout fabric that I always liked. I just love this color palette, the greens and the sort of beautiful shades of kind of plumbago blue. They're just quite pretty, but I really leaned into the brown in this fabric and did a velvet strié in this very rich brown on the sofa, and some of the pillows and chairs. And sort of wherever we could, we sort of tried to pick, sort of echo some nice details, on the pillows and the button tufts. Sometimes when you're doing brown, it's kind of nice to lighten it up by adding another color just to give it a little contrast. So this room is almost perfectly square, and it did just sort of lay itself out to have these two seating areas. I always like it when a desk is the side table. I feel like that's we had a lot of space there, so it sort of just tucked in there very naturally. The coffee table is a really beautiful vintage, it's sort of James Mont style, I would say, with a Greek key detail, lots of carving, lots of beautiful kind of reversed église painting on top. That's something I'm always looking for. I like how reflective it is without being too shiny. This is a Roger Mule painting, the same artist that's in my living room, but I just sort of can't get enough of his work. I'm always looking for it. And this is a particularly pretty one. It's a French landscape overlooking the sea in France. So I repeated the Cat and Tout fabric on this vintage sofa, sort of a Lawson style rolled arm, and it really looks wonderful. This pattern just lays out so perfectly with the 3 sets of cushions. So this is a wonderful Coromandel Chinese cabinet that I bought years ago. And again, it has just these beautiful vintage brass details. And it's sort of where I keep a lot of my entertaining things inside. And I love the shape of this mirror. And it was just sort of nice to have it just catches the light up high. It was a little high to have a painting there, I thought. So this is very useful. I have, over the years, owned many cabinets of this type. And I think they're always fitted out with great drawers and everything. So this is wonderful. These niched bookshelves, which are so useful. I love books. I probably have too many books, but I think it's just everybody needs a place to put all their things that they've collected. So this, for me, I have pictures and porcelain vases, a pair of these Chapman lights at the top, a painting that a friend gave me years ago that he painted. And it's just sort of nice to have all these things together in one place. And we have this really wonderful pair of vintage standing lamps, which are always useful. I feel like I have a pair of standing lamps in every room that I've ever decorated. I love this Mastercraft vintage brass coffee table. It was such a great scale, but I like the fact that it's very light and airy and kind of lets, you can sort of see the carpet through. I think it's important with every house to sort of create some sort of continuity, not repetitive with color, but I think you want to have a certain flow or thread of color, or even just the saturation of color throughout the house. So I feel like we were able to do that here pretty successfully by bringing in, I love color, but we brought in, fabrics that had a lot of pattern, mixed them with neutrals. And I also like when the pattern is not in the same place all the time. I feel like we have this lacquered room, and then you wander into this hallway, which has pattern at eye level, but a very subtle carpet. I feel it's nice to have just a little variation from room to room of where all the interest in the room is coming from. In one room, you might have a really crazy carpet, but then the room next to it might have a simple sisal or jute. And I think it's a way of sort of balancing those things out. I feel like I'm in camouflage in this room. I'm wearing my Sue Sartor collaboration dress, which is this very pretty silk caftan with a lot of wonderful gold embroidery. It has a little dragon on the back. And the sash has all of these wonderful little details from one of the wallpapers in my collection. I like to think that my house evolves. I may never really redecorate. I'll probably just try to constantly be improving it. My dining room, it's had kind of 3 revisions, but it's really the furniture that's changed. That was the most challenging room, actually. I couldn't figure out what to do on the walls. I thought I'll just put up a grasscloth for now, and maybe I'll change it later. I bought that very large break front, a very pretty Georgian piece, and it took up so much of the wall space, I decided it was better to put the interest in that room in the curtains, which are very dramatic, sort of chinoiserie style curtains with green tassels and straw shades beneath them, and the carpet, which is, looks like a Canton vase to me, but the colors all look great together, and all of my dinner services, all of my porcelain, china, plates, they all really look great in that room. I love decorating for myself. I just constantly looking. for beautiful things. What I find so interesting is, I think, the layering and, always being on the look for a beautiful painting or a beautiful pair of lamps. The nice thing about having a store is that if I decide that I find something that I'm preferring for my house, I can always just swap them out. So to the left of the foyer is my dining room, which is a wonderful scale for entertaining. I recently found this table maybe 4 years ago at, I think at Christie's. And then also separately, this wonderful set of 22 chairs, which are very petite in size, but they're actually quite comfortable. So that's worked out nicely. This large English cabinet, I also found at auction, and it's been a wonderful piece in this room because the scale of it is absolutely perfect. And I love dishes and plates and dinner services, and more on that later. These are some Chinese panels that I bought from a local antique store here in Locust Valley that are quite special, and they fit like within an inch between the crown molding and the baseboard. On the other side of the room, we have this wonderful Jansen cabinet, which is also great for storing flatware, napkins, placemats. And on top of it, I have these wonderful, playful chinoiserie lamps, a pair of pagodas that I bought years ago at a favorite antique store called Valley Attic in Locust Valley, and an assortment of hurricanes. And then I had to find a lot of very large mirrors for this house, but this was one that I really love because it almost just feels like having a third window in here. So I love these curtains that we designed for this room. They have the shape of a pagoda, which is just one of my favorite things, and wonderful playful tassels. I have in front of the pair of French doors these vintage George Z mahogany sort of cellarets, jardinières, that have been terrific. I've kept these two Regency palms going for about 5 years. So the chandelier is a very pretty old Baltic crystal chandelier, and the shades, I just used the leftover fabric from my curtains to make those, which are quite pretty. I do like having shades, light bulbs on light ceiling fixtures. These candelabras are enormous. I found them at a little store actually out here, and they were just kind of very fun and dramatic, and the scale was pretty fantastic for this table. And this is a Mary Kurt Kelly cabbage terrine that I've had for a really long time. I can't believe it has not been broken. But anyway, it's fun, and I have kind of a thing for cabbage. I also purchased this beautiful Adam-style mantle at auction. Actually, 4 of the mantels in this house are antique, which I think if you're building a new house and you want it to feel like it has a little charm and character, finding old mantels is a really nice way to do that. So let's have a look in the bedroom. So this room was originally where the master was in this house, but this room was a master and a dressing room. And so we knocked the whole thing out and made it just one big master bedroom. We added a fireplace, which conveniently lined up with the fireplace in the library. Again, I have more kind of great andirons and overscaled pieces. This is a gas fireplace, which I do a lot in bedrooms because it's just a little more convenient. But the bed is one that I found at auction years ago. It was a queen size bed, and I obviously wanted a king size bed. So we sort of took it apart, had a new headboard made these a little bit taller by ordering just some simple finials from Van Gregory, and painted it white. So it now is a king size bed, and I love it. The settee at the foot of the bed is really useful, and I love the fact it's so narrow. It also hides. A client of mine made this for me. He found a lift on Amazon and then got the television and came and delivered it to my house. He's a surgeon in Philadelphia. But I think it's one of the best things that we've started doing it for our clients because it's so nice not to have some big piece of furniture at the foot of the bed. If you can find, a settee that's just like a little bit higher than your bed, it works perfectly. So over here we have a very pretty Louis Philippe writing desk with a leather top. And it's just a place where a lot of my favorite pictures land, and keep a box of stationery in there. And these are some pretty, this is a lovely armchair that I bought years ago at Christie's that I don't think I ever even changed the fabric. It was this very pretty gaufrage velvet stripe. Over here we have a great Jansen sofa that I had recovered in an antique strié velvet. And these chairs I bought from that same sale, Mrs. Boswick's sale years ago, and they had a fabric that I always really loved from Pierre Frey with all the little butterflies. And anyway, so I never even changed the fabric. These chairs are wonderful. These are Serge Roche style chairs with really pretty carving. Again, we painted them sort of a chalky white, and we have this terrific Pierre Frey fabric and fun scalloped gimp. And I'm always looking for interesting pillows. These Fortuny ones I found at an antique store in Palm Beach, but I just thought they were sort of very nice in here and added a good layer. I should talk about the wallpaper. This is a Miles Red wallpaper for Schumacher, which is a favorite, and the scale of it was so perfect in this room. I had 1 inch to spare. I think they come in 12-foot panels, and we ran it up onto the tray. This is one of the things we did in here. We had the opportunity to, raise the ceiling height in this room, so we traded a little bit, created a flat molding around the top, and then ran the paper up and over the tray. So I think it just feels very enveloping. And my wallpaper guy was so great. He was able to do it and then over the vents and then cut out the vents so it sort of feels a little bit invisible. He did a great job. And we have more pretty brackets here. I love these French Louis XV style brackets, very kind of rococo. These lamps also are something I've had like my whole married life. I bought these vases years ago, and then Christopher Sitzmiller made the bases for me, and they're just extra pretty. Okay, I'm crazy about this pair of chests with really beautiful French hardware and the mirrored tops. They just feel, they're a little Jansen, and then I've got these Blanc de Chine lamps that actually came from my mother-in-law, and they've been in every home I've ever had. I have 3 pagoda etagères in this room. This one is really just for books and things that I like to have close by. And then we have 2 over here that have become part of my shoe storage, which are really fun. But I'm probably going to have mirrors installed on the front. This is a great Serge Roche mirror. And again, another Belection molding mantle, which is something that we do a lot. This is also from Hyde Park. And these Vaughan sconces I love. I have them in my living room in a different format. They're just very pretty and seem to work with a lot of different styles. It's sort of a go-to for me. Oh, and then I found these chairs that I thought were just so much fun. They're sort of a semi-chaise, and they have, 1 full arm and 1 half arm, so they're perfect kind of fireside chairs. This room was actually meant to be about 2 feet wider, but we had an issue with the staircase. So we lost a little space in this room, but I think we've still managed to make it work. But I love doing closets that are hidden, and I feel like this was a great success because we basically went floor to ceiling with the closets. And inside, there's a lot of space for shoes and accessories and things. These are from Pottery Barn, actually, these little things, shelves that we attach to the doors, but we painted everything out in the interiors of the closets blue, and it made it feel a little more bespoke. The wallpaper is one from my collection, and it's called Oriental Pastel, and it's just wonderful. We did this custom color for my dressing room, but because of the geometry of it, you really don't even see the seams of the doors. It was the perfect paper for this type of installation. It features sort of all these very pretty Asian garden scenes. Let's take a look outside of the garden. One of the best things about waking up in this bedroom is the view that we have, especially in the summertime, especially in June when Locust Valley is really at its best. We have beautiful roses here that we've had since we moved in and installed everything. I should note that this entire property was installed by us. That we kept as many of the old trees as we could. Some of them were not in great condition. So the property originally ended about where these urns are, and we were able to fill and push it out another like 70 feet, which gave us the opportunity to have a sort of a terrace, a grass terrace, and then 3 steps down to another terrace. It just sort of, it helped us with the grade issues of getting down to the pool as well. It's really nice that you can see from up here this wonderful iron structure down by the pool that is now, after 4 years, completely covered in roses and is looking particularly great this week. One of the best things about our home is this covered terrace. It has sort of lent itself for so many fun dinner parties over the years and cocktail parties and just, you know, events for my children. And I went with this blue fabric piped in black. All of the furniture is vintage Woodard, which is a company I'm crazy about. I'm always looking for old pieces, and they seem to work in a lot of different settings. I think it's particularly nice if you want your house to feel like it has a little age to it or a little charm. As you can see, we're setting up for a party. Someone very special is having a big birthday tonight, so that's what's happening over here. I've been collecting these chairs for a while. I think I have about 40. So tonight we have like 24 people coming for dinner, but it's great. The tables are very narrow and I'm able to seat a lot of friends here, and it's sort of a fun thing we do. We always come up with one of our fabrics to do a new tablecloth for a party. So this year we did marble because I'm doing a 60s theme, and we've just done all these wonderful new colorways. It's really great looking. So when we were figuring out the materials of this house, it was originally brick. We wanted it to be brick, but I didn't want it to be like a new looking brick. So I researched this. I found a very good handmade brick that I liked, knowing we were going to lime wash it or paint it. And I think we were very successful in that, because you want something that's porous, that has texture, that feels like it was always here. My husband and I could not decide about the color of the house. I wanted it to be more saturated. He wanted it to be very weathered looking. And so what our resolution was, we used a lime paint, saturated it with lime, but knowing how lime paint works, over the years, it's sort of become much more weathered. So I think it's the perfect combination. This birdhouse is something I found in an antique store in Philadelphia, and I loved it. And actually we have a lot of birds living in this house, and we just had it redone, and I just found a second one that I love just as much, that I think is going to go right over there. This will be my little birdhouse walkway. It was originally an agapanthus walkway, but after 3 years of having no success with the agapanthus, I've now put them in pots by the pool. I love finding little things in the garden, like these little pagoda stone pieces. They're just fun. I'm always looking for things like that. And here we have a little entry point to our pool. Come follow me inside. There was a pool here, but we were successful in lowering the grade of this property about 6 or 7 feet, so that now you can enter from our pool room, which is right here, to the terrace, where we have a little dining set up. And the pool is just like a great lap pool. I wanted it to feel like a pool that just was dropped into a garden. So we have wonderful hydrangeas that'll hopefully be in bloom soon, lining this stone wall that we designed. Again, we have 4 obelisks, which have beautiful climbing roses that will be in bloom hopefully very soon. Some very pretty old containers by the pool with agapanthus, which I love. So this is the other end of the pool. And this is a project that happened sort of during COVID. Jason Schwartz and I, who works with me, decided we needed a little shade down here. And we also wanted something with some scale. So it's 11 feet high and it's about 20 by 22. And we hung lanterns. We had this iron structure made by Forest Iron Works, and they did such a great job. It sort of echoes my terrace on the upper level. But this is only 4 years old, and already the roses are really climbing and doing their thing. And the furniture down here is also Woodard. I have a little fire pit for my kids. They like to come down and hang out down here when they have friends over. It's a nice place to sit by the fire on a cool night. This is a vintage set of outdoor furniture that I found that I think is probably from the 60s, but it kind of reminded me, all the swirls kind of reminded me of Francis Elkin's chairs. And this fun little umbrella. We still have the lights going from the last party we had here. And again, vintage wooded chaises that are just wonderful. I did extra thick cushions on them. They're really very nice. Now I'm going to show you the dogwood garden. This is a combination of, boxwoods, dogwoods. We have some very pretty roses. We tried to keep it mostly yellow and white. And I sort of like gardens that have a little bit of a tonal coloration. I like a lot of white and green in a garden with pops of blue and yellow. So let's have a look at the perennial garden, which is right off my bathroom. I found these wonderful obelisks at Valley House Antiques years ago. It was a favorite store that everyone in Locust Valley loved shopping there. The garden is mostly whites, yellows, and greens with little pops of pinkish coral there sort of towards the end. But we have dahlias and foxglove and lady's mantle and lots of pretty sort of ground cover. Here we have more perennials. What's great about a perennial garden is it comes back pretty much every year, but it's a nice combination of the round globes and the straight edged boxwood. And again here, I found these very pretty old statuary urns somewhere at an antique store, I think, in near Millbrook. And they're just wonderful. But I think little things like that really add something. This garden is mostly white and shades of sort of lavender and deep purples. So here we are at the front. There's a bright blue door there, which is a color that I love. It's also the color of my staircase. And we have, two more perennial gardens here, which are wonderful, mixed with the formal globes, but it has such a nice feel. The ivy we planted when we first moved in. It's doing really well over there, and this side needs a little bit of work. But as you can see, all the rooms on the ground floor have French doors coming out to the garden, which is lovely. So this is where we have all the peonies. We also have some dahlias. And again, 4 obelisks sort of anchoring this floor plan here, and a lot of container plants. This wisteria that is really enormous and you can see the root of it is very old and very thick. Came from a house that was being torn down, and my landscaper found it and brought it over here. So it's survived and flourishing. I love this espalier pear tree. It actually has so much fruit this year. My husband loves pears, and we joked about the fact it's the most time-consuming and rather expensive source of pears. Okay, let's have a look in the breakfast room. What's nice about this room is that if we're having lunch or dinner in here, I can leave the door open and hear the fountain outside. It's just a very relaxing sound. And actually the table is actually set for breakfast tomorrow because we have a bunch of house guests showing up and a lot of events. So we're trying to get ahead of it. But this is an octagonal table underneath that's actually a painted table with lots of leaves, which I don't really use in this room because it's so small, but we had a pretty tablecloth made for it, so it always has a tablecloth. And then again, this is a Bernard Thorpe fabric that is, I just love this fabric, and we found these great set of serge roche chairs. I think I have 10 of them. And I used one of my favorite wallpapers. I love trellis. I wish I had more trellis in this house, but I love the trellis detail echoed in a lot of places. It's here on this wonderful sort of old vintage floral basket light that I found a long time ago. And then we did these hidden cabinets. So I love a good hidden cabinet. And this is where I keep a lot more of my cabbageware. So again, in the space, we painted out the trim, a complementary color. We have 2 sets of French doors. This room was originally a bedroom in the original house. We did a very pretty scallop on the curtains. That is a detail that I like to do. The kitchen, which was done by Waterworks 8 years ago, and it's fantastic. Laid out with a lot of symmetry, which you want in a kitchen. I love this kitchen because it's so light and cheerful. I sometimes don't even turn the lights on when I come in, but this island is extra big, and it was just designed really beautifully by Waterworks with a Danby slab on top. And I particularly love the hardware in this kitchen. I love doing a white oven, and this one is fantastic. My husband cooks a lot and he loves it. It's Garland. It's their residential line called Blue Star. But I love the fact that you can do everything in white. You can actually do, I think, almost any color. And then we designed this very nice looking sort of pagoda-like vent to go over it. And I always have a lot of plants in my house. I'm just a topiary and fern kind of girl. These lights are from Vaughn, and I use them on a lot of projects. They give a really soft light, and you can do them in other fabrics as well. I love how this kitchen laid out. It just has a lot of symmetry. I love the placement of these two big refrigerator freezers. And we have a desk over here that's being used for party setup that is full of awfully pretty flowers for tonight. I love Frances Elkins, and I love all of her loop chairs, and I thought these bar stools were particularly good looking and kind of a fun look for this kitchen. So the bar looking a little sloppy right now because of our party setup, but a lot of my favorite things are in this room. We designed it to be sort of very Regency style, with a Regency style detail on the cabinets. We've got antique mirror and all of the full mirrored cabinets, and also over here on the uppers. But I think we really maxed it out. It holds a lot, and especially these cabinets here really allow you a lot of space with a lot of shelves for a lot of dishes. I really love these reverse paintings on mirror. They're just very special, and I try to collect them. Whenever I see them, I try to buy them, but these are particularly nice with beautiful trees and very lovely Asian figures. And this is a bench that I have had forever with a favorite Scalamandre green tiger velvet. So I've really enjoyed having this. And then I wanted a rug that just felt super forgiving for spills, but also I like mixing in old Harries type carpets into the various spaces. I think it's a nice way to make everything feel not too new. I was inspired by Regency architecture, so we designed the house like a lot of Regency houses. It has, a center hall, a gallery. There are really nice sight lines in this house. I feel like one of the really great things about it is no matter where you are, there's always a very large window or French doors bringing in light. I try to decorate in a way that's very timeless and something I'm not going to get tired of. I tend to put a lot of big patterns on chairs and things like that. You'll see that I do a lot of solid sofas because I feel like, the larger pieces in the room sometimes just want to be a little bit quieter. So we have this wonderful hallway, which basically links so many of the rooms in our house. But it was about 75 feet long, so we broke it up by kind of creating the center vestibule in two galleries as opposed to one very long gallery. And it kind of gives you the opportunity to create centers and hang art more easily. And again, and this paper is actually a very nice backdrop for paintings, and I love interesting bird prints and beautiful frames, and the carpet is very subtle. This pair of consoles I found at Christie's years ago. They were designed by John Stefanidis, and I actually painted them white. They were kind of a very bright gold, but I think they're really wonderful. I love that William Kent style. And again, another really wonderful giltwood mirror. This is like just a staple for me. I always try to have these in my store. And another wonderful pair of Spitzmiller lamps. So this was originally the kitchen in the house we bought. We decided to flip the kitchen. It's now where a bedroom originally was, but this room faces the back of the house, and it gets wonderful light during the day. And we've sort of made it a kind of a cozy hangout room. These are a pair of vintage sofas that I bought at auction. that are sort of a Billy Baldwin style. And again, there's just like a lot of great chairs and things in here. These are super comfortable in the zebra fabric from Brunswick, which is one of my favorites. I've used this many times. And then we have a pair of really great looking goatskin coffee tables that I found for the store, and then I just had to have them. So anyway, they are really wonderful. And I like bringing in those caramel browns into this room. We have some good looking Brunswick embroidered Latouche pillows, which is one of my favorite fabrics. And this is an old Clarence House cut velvet that I just think is so pretty. And it's also, with these lucite chairs, it was an opportunity to make them feel a little richer. And I think because the fabric is sort of heavier and richer, it makes the chairs more substantial. I really love this fabric. So I went with the grasscloth in here because I wanted the texture coming off of the hallway, which is wallpapered in a large scale pattern. And the bar, which is just beyond this room, is in a high gloss lacquer blue. It felt very natural to me, and I wanted it to be light and cheerful, and I do love yellow, and this is a particularly nice ochre yellow from our collection. And I think yellow looks great with blue. So over here we have a great looking goatskin dining table that actually has leaves, and I'm on the hunt for a few more of these chairs actually. But this is a great place if my kids are home. My grill is right there. There is a television in here. Sometimes we'll just sit and watch tennis and have dinner, or some football game or whatever. But this is a very, very used area of our house. We have a lot of fireplaces in this house, but this is a plaster fireplace that was from Hyde Park Moldings. They designed this for us. It's so simple. It's a Belection molding, and we often do something like this. But I really love vintage fireplace equipment. I'm always looking for interesting andirons and fire screens. I think this is like an old William Jackson fire screen that's glass, but really beautiful. And I always try to have a big rush basket of logs by a working fireplace. I wanted to hang something, next to the television over these lucite consoles. I wanted to hang art, but I didn't want it to be distracting. So these were really fun mid-century plaster reliefs that I found, the set of 4. And they're just easy on the eye. They have I think a good vibe for this house, and they add a little texture and a little geometry also. So we have this great pair of Asian rosewood etagères, which is a place where I keep a lot of my old photo albums and more books. All my cookbooks are actually in here. Not that I'm known for my cooking. And then on top of these cabinets, I have a collection of porcelain. These foo dogs barely fit. But they're so fantastic, and I just had to bring them home. They were in the shop. But this is sort of a fun place to put, just odds and ends, and probably says a lot about my personality, but there are a lot of photo albums here. So let's have a look in the basement. We have a couple of rooms down there that I want to share with you. So we're in the basement, and this is my little photo gallery. Don't look too closely because a lot of these are falling out of the frames and sort of turning sideways. But this is just a lifetime collection of pictures of people that are very special to me, my family, my friends. So I just keep adding to it. And it's fun to have a hallway where you can just put them all together and take a pass by and revisit some good memories. Okay, so join me in the pool room. This is a big hangout spot for my kids and for us. We don't have a pool house, so this kind of serves all of those purposes. We have a fun vintage bar over there that is something I found kind of along the way. I found lots of great vintage wicker from like the 1960s and 70s and upholstered them all up in a favorite fabric from my collection called Ferns. And this was a really wonderful mid-century sofa. It's super comfortable. I like that it's very low slung. And this is a Beckley Brothers table that's very nice, large, unusual size, and it has that second tier, which is always great, just again, for books and big photo albums and things like that. So first of all, we painted all the floors in the basement white because the ceilings are quite low. I think in here they're only maybe 7.5 feet. So it really does help in brightening the space and making the ceilings feel a little bit higher. This room was originally 6 feet below ground, and this wall here that faces out to the pool was a solid wall with like some tiny transom windows. So we excavated outside about 6 or 7 feet so that you could easily walk straight out to the pool as opposed to having to walk up steps. And by doing that, we captured so much light in here. And it also just continues down the hallway and into the other room. It's a wonderful source of light. And these are these nano doors that open up, so it's completely open, during the summer if we're hanging out by the pool. And this is just a great little Dunbar dining table that I painted white and found these good-looking rattan chairs. And, these are performance fabrics, but this is a place over the years we've had, we've used it as a buffet for our dinner, or I've sometimes done craft projects down here. This is where I do my Christmas wrapping, and no one's allowed to come down here before Christmas. So this is a great little seating area in the pool room where, again, just performance fabrics. And I love this sort of James Mont style coffee table with a little Greek key detail. And these are, I love needlepoint. I don't have time to do as much needlepoint as I used to, but these are beautiful, and these were given to us by a friend. They're just so charming and special. I love this fun vintage bar that is faux bamboo, and I've been planning to install a sink in it for quite some time, so maybe that'll happen this winter. And then I love this painting. I was originally going to send it down to Florida, but it sort of brightened this room. It just felt so cheerful, and it's by an artist named Fred Jessup that I really love. And I don't know, it just sort of speaks to me. The colors, I like the foliage, the types of plants. He painted a lot of plants and containers, which is something I just very drawn to. And butterflies, he always had butterflies in his paintings. So it's a really fun one from, I think, the 60s. I'm from Tupelo, Mississippi. I was raised there, went to high school there, and then on to Nashville, Tennessee to go to Vanderbilt University. And then I did a graduate program at Parsons for design. I decided somewhere along the way, I really think probably my grandmother influenced me. She had a real interest in interior design and antiques and entertaining, and I learned a lot from her. My grandmother's outlook on antiques and interior design was, if you fall in love with something, buy it, you're going to find a spot for it. So I've kind of lived with that mantra for quite some time, and I think that's really where I began my lifetime love of antiques and design and searching and the hunt for finding special pieces for myself and for my clients. So in this hallway, I used a really simple raffia and very simple furniture, a little bit of bamboo, a little bit of, painted furniture. But the thing I love about this space is these Alfred Birdsey prints. He was an artist in Bermuda that did a lot of watercolors. And I've probably found, 50 of them over the years, and either sold them in my store or brought them home with me to my house. But they're just special and a little sketchy in terms of the way that he painted. Really beautiful. These are celery Kemble lamps for arterials, which I love. I've used those in so many projects. So here we are in the landing of our basement. There's a staircase here that goes up 3 flights up to the 2nd floor. And over here we have our game room, which is one of the biggest sofas I've ever ordered, in this great looking simple green velvet. And on the walls I used one of our papers called Rainforest, which has an A-B panel, so it feels a little more mural-like and less repetitive. But I wanted something in here to give it some interest, because again, we didn't have great architecture. I created niches where we had these pockets of space. So it also just broke up the wall and added some symmetry to this room. But we have a fun shuffleboard table. And then this is a ping pong table that I designed for a show house I did about 10 years ago that just sort of landed in my basement. So we've had a lot of fun beer pong parties and ping pong parties doing that. But I love these swivel chairs. These were from Selamat that are just really great for watching ping pong. And again, down here, it's a lot of fun vintage furniture. We've got these terrific looking Asian lacquered side tables, some Bunny Williams lamps. I love her lamps also. This is one of my fabrics called Vienna woods, which is a faux bois, which just seems to work its way into a lot of great spaces because of the nature of that sort of geometric, but leopard but not leopard kind of thing. And then again, another pair of these Parsons chairs over here that are so comfortable. The coffee table, again, is a vintage Kroll Springer that I painted white. I think the forms are so good. Sometimes I'll buy them even if they're in terrible condition and restore them and have them relacquered or repainted. And then these are from Made Goods, I believe. They are just some great plaster wall art. Sometimes when you have a lot of pattern going on in a room, but you just want to hang something just to, break it up. Sometimes, white plaster relief types of art is a great way to go. And these are just sort of fun and organic and add a little geometry. I love this Asian cabinet. It was originally in my store and it was black and I just decided to paint it, but the hardware is particularly pretty. And like I said, I'm always looking for vintage brass accessories, and I love these koi fish. I have two of them, but this one kind of landed itself here in front of this large brass mirror. And these are from Amanda Lindroth's collection. There were some favorites that are not really around anymore, but they're really wonderful. Here we are in the upstairs landing of our home. This is a beautiful settee that I've had for so many years. It was originally in my office in New York City in like my entry, but it's just, I've never even reupholstered it since then for 20 years, but it's wonderful silk velvet that kind of gets better with age, and a beautiful Japanese screen. I am always looking for large screens. I think it's such a wonderful thing to have over a sofa or over a very long sideboard because the scale is always, it's usually 60 by something. So those are really fantastic. And these are just so interesting. I found them years ago. They're sort of dragon-like. I definitely have like a thing for dragons and sort of Asian details, but they're gilt wood carved sort of sculptures. They're wood, but they're quite pretty. I just always like them. And then of course, I love this tiger sort of slash dragon Asian carpet. I see these occasionally at antique stores or at auction, and it's super fun, just something to mix it up. The entry of the upstairs, and this is a room that's, I think, very welcoming. You come upstairs, my 4 children have rooms up here. This floor did not exist. The house was 1 story when we bought it, so this entire floor was added. I went with a neutral raffia wall covering in this room from our collection and added this nice GEMP detail that sort of echoes the lacquer in the stair halls. It's a nice way of sort of threading together a few rooms. We have a really pretty old harmonious carpet in here that again has the corally reds and the blues and a little bit of that sort of ochre beige. This is a pair of lamps that I think also kind of pull all these colors together. And this portrait is by a local artist named Nan Coffey, who painted my 4 boys at our other house in front of another Rouge Royale mantel about, 15 years ago, I guess. But it's sort of found its way up here, so it greets you as you arrive. And then I have another portrait just over here that's my mother-in-law, very, very beautiful, when she was, I think, about 30. And she really did not like this painting, and so she gave it to me, and I treasure it. It's gone with us from house to house, so it's very special. And the curtains are from a fabric from Venetian, which I had always loved. And again, it just sort of helped me thread that color story into this space. There's not a lot of place to put fabrics in here, but this with this very pretty chinoiserie quadrille fabric and a damask that I have used over the years, probably in every colorway. And I love these little tabouret Chinese stools. They're just fun and architecture. They just give a little interest. And then this room is our upstairs family room, which kind of links the 4 bedrooms. There's 2 bedrooms on this side and 2 bedrooms on this side. But we did some, custom millwork here to create a little alcove for the sofa. I love this Katie Ritter wallpaper. It's a favorite. And you might remember this room because it was on the cover of Veranda about 4 years ago. And it's very heavily used. But we still have a lot of really wonderful things in here. I have this vintage brass coffee table. The Carl Springer console that, again, I painted it in this blue to match the trim color. And even these James Mont chairs that are here that look super uncomfortable, they're actually so comfortable, and my kids love to sit in them, and they've never broken them. I'm amazed how long they've sort of stood the test of time here. We have a couple of swivel chairs that are always useful and comfortable. I don't always do swivel chairs, as one of my children actually got stitches from spinning on a swivel chair in my old house and crashed into a table. So anyway, but they're pretty useful here, and the boys are grown up now, so no one's doing that anymore. I love the bamboo details. We have these really wonderful bamboo chairs. They have this wonderful chinoiserie fabric on them in a sort of a caramel color. And then the bamboo detail is sort of echoed here too in these very pretty Asian woodblock prints. That's another thing I like to look for. And then I'm crazy about this games table. I painted, it's a vintage brass. It has a backgammon board underneath. We painted it, again, a great blue that kind of just worked with everything. I absolutely love these zebra chairs. They're done in needlepoint with a very pretty nail head detail. And I bought them this way. I can't believe someone actually needlepointed these and took the time to do this. So a shout out to my friend at the Red Thread, Vaughn and Lisette. I just think these are fabulous. Somebody should recreate this canvas. So we have a lot of books, but I also buy old books. I just think they look pretty. Sometimes, they're in good condition. Sometimes they're not in such great condition, but it's fun to have a good mix of old and new. And I have to say, this wallpaper, I think hanging art on this wallpaper, I thought, oh, we're not going to be able to hang anything, but I think the paintings actually look quite good against this sort of paisley pattern. I love raffia shades. Use them a lot, and wicker, depending on where we are. And just a good mix of pillows here. It's a little repetition. When I was designing the bedrooms for my 4 boys, who are now 28, 26, and 21, I asked them all what their favorite color was, what they wanted their room to look like, and they all came back with something different. The biggest challenge was my oldest son, Douglas, said, I really love the color gray, which was kind of a problem for me because I really don't decorate very often with gray. But I made an exception. I found a fantastic Latouche wallpaper, which is one of my favorite fabrics, and we ran that on the walls in his room. And I think actually it looks pretty fantastic. But recently he said to me, why is my room gray? And I thought to myself, Douglas, this was your request. So I have 4 boys, but I'm just going to show you Douglas's room because we were talking about it earlier. But this is a Latouche fabric that I did on his walls with these sort of gray, smoky gray curtains. He wanted a gray room, which I can't believe, but anyway, because I'm such a color person. But I kind of took the advantage of, I went strong in the green, did the green sofa chairs. The lamps are quite pretty from Villa and Home. And over here, there's some art that sort of, again, echoes a pinch of the green in here. And this is a room that has a lot of nice mid-century furniture. We've got, these Chinese cabinets here and here that are kind of very James Mont. And I went with a very large Labarge mirror in this room and another really great Billy Baldwin, large sofa, coffee table. And then this was a desk that I found somewhere along the way, and we just lacquered it up in a pretty green. So we're going to go back downstairs. I want to point out the very pretty Chinese panels. There are 5 in this hallway, and it did a very nice job of unifying the space. So they go all the way from up here, main floor, and down towards the basement. And now let's go down and have a look. So here we are in my stair hall, which is adjacent to the foyer, but it's sort of nice that they're a little bit separate, but yet very open with about an 8-foot opening here. This staircase, I was sort of inspired by a lot of the Regency houses in this area, and I visited quite a few of them and have friends who have houses of that type. And I sort of took the cues from those, but I kept it very simple. I wanted just a very simple handrail and very simple spindles. But I think it turned out to be like a very gracious stair hall. And here we have the other antique chinoiserie panels here lining the room, which was it's very challenging to know what kind of art to put in a staircase. I feel I've sort of, a curved staircase, this is kind of a great idea because it doesn't extend out too much. They're not that wide. And they sort of fit pretty nicely into these sort of niched areas. The carpet is really fun and super forgiving. It's from Stark, and it just has held up very well for the past 8 years. I'm happy with it. And I also love the combination of the leopard with the blue. It just feels really nice. There was a house out here called Templeton that was owned by C.Z. Guest, Cornelia Guest's mother. And she had this carpet going through most of the downstairs of her house. And I always just thought it was so good looking. And it just sort of felt like the right thing to put here. But it's nice that we had this window. It brings in a lot of light into the downstairs and into other areas of the house. So this is the other end of the long hallway. But I love these cabinets I bought years ago from a dealer in London who just happened to be, I guess, at High Point. I had nowhere to put them. I put them in storage for about 10 years. And then when I bought this house, I couldn't figure out where in the world I was going to use them. And then it occurred to me that they could flank the library doors. But it's great to have more books. And I do have a thing for all these pretty little cabbage plates and bowls and terrines. So they all kind of live in here. And we pull them out when we're looking for new containers and ways to, entertain. This is my powder room. I went with a brass finish and all the fittings here with the THG hardware, but I used it as an opportunity to put a really fabulous wallpaper from Bob Collins, which is a favorite fabric and wallpaper company down in West Palm Beach. It's very kind of old-timey and old school. I have this old Fortuny chair that I just didn't have the heart to recover. It's a little threadbare, but just very pretty. And this vanity was designed to sort of look very 1930s, sort of like the rest of the house. Well, to me, home is where your family is, where you can share what you've created with good friends and create memories with friends and family and have gatherings. And I love to entertain and enjoy my house with others. And I'm so fortunate that 3 of my children live nearby as of this month in New York City. So it's wonderful that they're able to come out and enjoy this house and bring their friends out. And that's really what it's all about.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.